Victoria Morgan's Bentley screeched to a halt in the underground parking garage of Sullivan & Sons Auto Repair at 11:47 p.m. on a Tuesday. She stumbled out in a $1,000 dress and bare feet, mascara streaking her face, clutching her phone like a lifeline. "Please," she said to the man in grease-stained coveralls walking toward his truck. "I know it's late. I know this is crazy. But I need help, and you're the only person whose number I have who isn't on my payroll." David Sullivan stopped, toolbox in hand, and stared at the woman who'd fired him 3 months ago. She took a shaking breath. "I don't have a husband. I don't have friends. I don't have anyone. Can I—" Her voice cracked. "Can I just have 5 minutes of your time? But let me take you back to where this impossible moment began. And please, comment your city below so I can see how far this story has traveled." 3 months earlier, David Sullivan was having the kind of Monday that reminded him why he'd left corporate America in the first place. The heating system in the Morgan Industries Tower, 42 floors of glass and steel dominating downtown Denver, had decided to die during a February cold snap, and somehow that was his problem. "Sullivan, get up here." The voice crackled through his radio. "Executive floor. CEO's office is an icebox." Dave grabbed his toolbox and headed for the service elevator, bypassing the main ones, where executives in designer suits pretended not to see the maintenance guys who kept their perfect world running. He'd been working at Morgan Industries for 8 months now, ever since his small engineering firm had gone under, and he'd needed steady income with benefits for Sophie. The executive floor was everything the basement wasn't. Marble floors, abstract art that probably cost more than his truck, and a reception desk manned by a woman whose expression suggested smiling would crack her face. "Your maintenance." She looked him up and down, like he'd tracked something unpleasant across her perfect floor. "David Sullivan. Hear about the heat." "Ms. Morgan's office is through those doors. Don't touch anything except the thermostat." She turned back to her computer, dismissing him. Dave had seen plenty of corner offices in his day, but Victoria Morgan's was something else. Floor-to-ceiling windows overlooking the Rockies, furniture that looked like it belonged in a museum, and a temperature that made his breath fog. And behind a desk, the size of his kitchen table, sat the woman herself. Victoria Morgan was 47 and looked exactly like her Forbes profile photo. Sharp cheekbones, dark hair pulled back severe enough to give most people a headache, and eyes that could freeze helium. She was on a phone call speaking rapid-fire Mandarin and didn't acknowledge Dave's existence as he crossed to the thermostat. He pulled out his tablet and started running diagnostics. The heating system was 30 years old, held together with duct tape and prayer. The thermostat itself was functional, but the zone control for the executive floor was shot. He'd need to reroute it, which meant at least 2 hours of work. "And tell Singapore I don't accept excuses. I accept results," Victoria said in English, ending her call. "You, maintenance. How long?" Dave looked up. 2 hours, maybe 3. "Your zone controls failed. I can reroute you to the secondary system, but 2 hours." She checked her watch. "Something Swiss and complicated. I have a board meeting in 90 minutes. Then you'll be cold for it. This isn't something I can rush without risking the whole building's system." Her eyes narrowed. "What's your name?" "David Sullivan." "Well, David Sullivan, I'm going to make this very simple. You have 1 hour. If this office isn't heated in 60 minutes, you're fired." Something hot flared in Dave's chest. He'd swallowed a lot in the 8 months since his firm collapsed. Swallowed his pride, swallowed his engineering degree, swallowed the fact that he was 43 and fixing thermostats instead of designing systems. But he'd be damned if he swallowed this. "No," he said. Victoria blinked. "Excuse me." "I said no. Fire me if you want, but I'm not going to do a rush job that could fail in a week and leave your entire executive floor without heat. I do the work right, or I don't do it at all." They stared at each other. Dave waited for the explosion for security to be called for the end of his steady paycheck and Sophie's health insurance. Instead, Victoria did something unexpected. She laughed. Not a polite corporate chuckle, but a real laugh that transformed her face into something almost human. "You know what, fine. 2 hours. But if this isn't fixed by my afternoon meetings, I'm docking your department's budget." She picked up her phone. "Send someone to move my board meeting to conference room B. Apparently my office is uninhabitable." Dave got to work surprised to still have a job. He was halfway through rerouting the zone control when Victoria spoke again. "You said you do the work right or not at all?" He looked up from the access panel. "Yes, ma'am." "That's a luxury most people can't afford. It's a principle most people can't afford to abandon." She studied him with those sharp eyes. "You're not from Denver, are you?" That accent. "Wisconsin originally. Moved here 4 years ago." "For work?" Dave hesitated. He hated this conversation, hated the pity that always followed. "For my daughter. Better doctors here." "She's sick. Was. Leukemia. She's in remission now, 3 years clear." Something shifted in Victoria's expression. Not pity, worse. Recognition. "My father died of cancer when I was 12. Pancreatic. 6 months from diagnosis to funeral." "I'm sorry." "Don't be. It was 35 years ago." She turned back to her laptop, fingers flying across the keyboard. "And it made me who I am." Dave wanted to ask if that was a good thing, if becoming the ice queen of Denver commerce was worth whatever warmth she'd sacrificed to get there. Instead, he focused on the wiring, letting silence fill the space between them. He finished in 90 minutes. The system hummed to life, warm air flowing through the vents. Victoria looked up from her work. "Functional. Should be good for another month, but that whole system needs replacing. It's a liability. Add it to the list." She stood, extending her hand. "Thank you, David Sullivan. I appreciate competence." Her grip was firm, brief, professional. But Dave felt calluses on her palm that surprised him. This wasn't a woman who'd never worked with her hands. "You're welcome, Ms. Morgan." He packed his tools and headed for the door, expecting that to be the end of it. He'd fixed her heat, kept his job, and would never see the inside of the executive floor again. "Sullivan?" Her voice stopped him at the threshold. "What did you do before maintenance?" Dave turned. "I was a mechanical engineer. Had my own firm, Sullivan & Sons Environmental Systems. We designed HVAC for commercial buildings." "What happened?" "Medical bills, business loans to cover them. Then the 2008 recession hit, and commercial construction dried up. I declared bankruptcy in 2009, took this job in 2010. Victoria nodded slowly. "Come back Thursday, same time. I want to discuss something." "Ma'am." "I'm not going to repeat myself." Dave left confused and slightly annoyed. He didn't need career advice from someone who'd probably never struggled a day in her life. But Thursday came, and so did another summons to the executive floor. This time, Victoria's office was warm. She gestured to a chair across from her desk. "Sit." Dave sat toolbox at his feet, wondering if this was some elaborate firing ritual. Victoria slid a folder across the desk. "This is the proposal your firm submitted to Morgan Industries in 2007. Environmental systems for our new manufacturing facility in Boulder." Dave's stomach dropped. He remembered that proposal. It had been one of their last before everything fell apart. "We didn't get the contract." "No, you didn't. Wallace Engineering underbid you by 30%. She opened the folder. "Their system failed after 18 months. Cost us $2 million in repairs and lost production. I pulled your original proposal yesterday. It would have worked." "Why are you telling me this?" "Because I'm opening a new facility in Colorado Springs. 40,000 square feet, climate-controlled manufacturing for medical devices. I need someone who knows what they're doing, not the cheapest option." She looked at him directly. "I want you to consult on the environmental systems design." Dave felt like he'd been punched. "I'm maintenance staff. You're an engineer who happens to fix thermostats because life knocked you down. I'm offering you a chance to do what you're actually qualified for." She named a consulting fee that made his eyes water. "Contract basis, no benefits, no permanent position. just your expertise on this one project. Why me? Because you told a CEO no yesterday. Because you have principles you won't compromise even when it costs you. Because your daughter beat cancer and you didn't fall apart, you did what needed doing. Victoria's expression was unreadable. I collect competent people the way some women collect shoes. Consider yourself collected. Dave thought about Sophie, about her college fund that barely existed, about the roof that needed replacing, and the truck that wouldn't last another winter. What's the catch? The catch is that I'm demanding unreasonable and will expect perfection. But I pay on time, and I don't waste people's talents. She stood. Think about it. You have until Monday. He didn't need until Monday. I accept. Something that might have been approval flickered across her face. Good. My assistant will send you the project specs. First meeting is Tuesday, 6 a.m. 6 a.m. I don't sleep much, and I don't see why anyone else should either. Over the next month, Dave spent his mornings in the executive conference room, working with Victoria and her team on the Colorado Springs facility. His evenings were still spent in maintenance. He couldn't afford to quit until the consulting contract was solid, but his mornings belonged to engineering again. Victoria was everything she'd warned, demanding unreasonable, expecting perfection. She questioned every assumption, challenged every decision, and had a memory like a steel trap for any contradictions in the data. It should have been miserable. Instead, Dave found himself looking forward to those 6 a.m. meetings. Not because of the work, though, that was satisfying in ways he'd forgotten, but because Victoria Morgan was the most fascinating person he'd encountered in years. She quoted Nietzsche during budget discussions. She'd learned Mandarin to negotiate directly with suppliers instead of using translators. She arrived at 5 a.m. every day and left after 8 p.m. every night. She had no photos in her office, no personal items, nothing that suggested a life beyond these walls. Don't you ever go home? Dave asked one morning, arriving to find her already reviewing overnight reports from their Shanghai office. This is home, she said without looking up. Or close enough. That's not healthy. She glanced at him over her reading glasses. Since when is my health your concern? Since you're the one signing my checks. If you collapse from exhaustion, my contract disappears. Practical concern. I can respect that. She closed the report. I have a penthouse 12 blocks from here. I sleep there occasionally. Satisfied? Do you eat? When food is available? That's not what I asked. Victoria set down her pen with deliberate precision. David, are you mothering me? Someone should. They stared at each other, and Dave realized he'd crossed some invisible line. He was about to apologize when she laughed, that same real laugh from their first meeting. Fine. There's a breakfast place 2 blocks north. If you're so concerned about my nutrition, you can buy me pancakes. It became a pattern. Tuesday and Thursday mornings after their project meetings, they'd walk to Mary's Diner, a hole in the wall that served coffee strong enough to strip paint and pancakes, that Sophie would have called criminally fluffy. Victoria always ordered the same thing: black coffee wheat toast, 1 scrambled egg. Dave tried to get her to branch out. You're in a diner famous for pancakes and you order toast. I don't like sweet things. That's sad. That's efficient. Sugar provides energy followed by a crash. Toast is consistent. You know what else is consistent? Being boring. She kicked him under the table, actually kicked him with a smile that made her look 10 years younger. I'm many things, David Sullivan. Boring isn't one of them. He was starting to agree. In these breakfast conversations away from the glass tower and the corporate armor, Victoria was different. Sharp, still, but warm, too. She asked about Sophie, actually listened to his stories about parent-teacher conferences and science fair projects. She admitted her father had wanted her to be a doctor, not a CEO, and sometimes she wondered what that life would have looked like. Why didn't you? Dave asked. Because my mother ran the company into the ground after he died. Someone had to save it. I was 23, fresh out of business school, and furious. She stared into her coffee. Anger's a powerful motivator. but it's not a great life companion. You could let it go. Could I? I've been angry for 24 years, David. I'm not sure I remember how to be anything else. Dave reached across the table, covered her hand with his. It was instinct comfort, the kind of gesture he'd make to Sophie when she was hurting. Victoria stared at their hands like she'd never seen the configuration before. She didn't pull away. "What are you doing?" Her voice was quiet. "Being your friend, if you'll let me." "I don't have friends." "I noticed. That's why I'm applying for the position." She did pull away then, but slowly. "This is inappropriate. You're a contractor. I'm your client. We're two people having breakfast. Everything else is just job titles." Victoria shook her head. "You don't understand how this works. People like me don't have friends. We have employees, competitors, and assets. That's it." "That's the saddest thing I've ever heard." "It's reality. It's a choice." Dave signaled for the check, and you're smart enough to know the difference. They didn't talk on the walk back to the tower. Dave went down to the maintenance office. Victoria went up to her executive floor, and he figured that was the end of their Tuesday-Thursday breakfasts. But Thursday came, and she was waiting by the diner at their usual time. "I'm choosing to have breakfast," she said without preamble. "That's all. Just breakfast." Dave smiled. Just breakfast. Except it wasn't just breakfast, and they both knew it. The consulting contract ended in April. The Colorado Springs facility was designed, approved, and moving into construction. Dave had enough money to fix his roof, replace his truck, and start a real college fund for Sophie. He should have been celebrating. Instead, he felt like he was losing something he couldn't name. His last official meeting with Victoria was on a Wednesday. She handed him a check and a letter of recommendation that could open doors he'd thought were permanently closed. "This is generous," he said, looking at the recommendation. "Thank you. You earned it. The facility design is excellent, better than I expected." "High praise from you," she almost smiled. "Don't get used to it." Dave stood collecting his papers. This was it. Back to full-time maintenance, back to thermostats and leaky pipes, back to a life that didn't include early morning meetings and breakfast debates about the merits of pancakes. "David." Victoria stood too. "I need to tell you something." "Okay." She looked uncomfortable, which was so unlike her that Dave felt alarm bells ringing. "These past 2 months, the project meetings, the breakfasts, the conversations, they've been—" "Yeah," he said quietly. "They have. I don't do this. Personal connections, caring about someone's opinion, looking forward to Tuesday mornings. I know. So I need you to understand that this ends here. You're an exceptional engineer and a decent man, but my life doesn't have room for complications." Dave felt something crack in his chest. "I'm a complication. You're a temptation to be someone I can't afford to be." She looked away. "I've spent 24 years building this company back from nothing. I sacrificed everything: relationships, family, any pretense of a normal life. I can't undo that for breakfast conversations and friendship." "I'm not asking you to undo anything. I'm just asking you to let yourself be human." "I tried human once. It made me weak." Victoria's voice was sharp now, defensive. "My father died because he was human, because he cared more about being loved than being respected, more about family dinner than business survival. My mother fell apart because she was human. I will not make their mistakes." Loving people isn't a mistake. It is when it destroys everything you've built. They stood in her office 12 feet apart, with a chasm of fear and self-protection between them that felt impossible to cross. "I should go," Dave said finally. "Sophie's got a soccer game at 4. "Of course. Tell her good luck from me." "Will I see you again?" Victoria's expression was ice. The warmth from their breakfast conversations, the glimpses of the woman beneath the armor gone. "Only if your thermostat breaks." Dave left. He went back to his maintenance job, picked up Sophie from school, sat through a soccer game where she scored twice, and tried to pretend his chest didn't hurt, like something vital had been ripped out. Sophie noticed. She always noticed. "You're sad, Dad." Just tired, sweetheart. You're sad because of the CEO lady, the one you have breakfast with. Dave nearly drove off the road. How do you know about that? I'm 10, not stupid. You've been happier the last 2 months, like you were before Mom died. Then today you're sad again. She looked at him with Michelle's eyes too, knowing too wise for a kid her age. Did she hurt your feelings? It's complicated. Did you tell her you like her? Sophie. Because if you like someone and they like you back, you should tell them. That's what you always tell me about making friends. This is different. Why? Because she's rich and you're not? Because she's your boss. Sophie crossed her arms. That's stupid. Mom wouldn't have cared about that stuff. And there it was. Michelle present in every conversation about moving forward, about letting new people into their lives. Sophie had been 6 when her mother died. She didn't remember the chemo, the hospital stays the way Michelle had wasted away until she was barely there. She remembered bedtime stories and homemade cookies and a mother who'd loved her without reservation. Mom would want you to be happy, Sophie said quietly. She told me that before. She said if something happened to her, you should find someone else to love, because you're too good at loving people to stop. Dave pulled into their driveway, killed the engine, and pulled his daughter into a hug. When did you get so smart? I've always been smart. You're just noticing now. That night after Sophie was asleep, Dave sat in his workshop, a converted garage, where he still kept his engineering equipment and tried to lose himself in a personal project. But his mind kept drifting back to Victoria, to the way she laughed when he challenged her, to the rare mornings when she'd let her guard down and talk about her father, about the girl she'd been before anger became her armor. She was right. They were from different worlds. She was corporate royalty, and he was a widowed maintenance man with a 10-year-old and a mortgage. It would never work. Except she'd looked forward to their Tuesday mornings. Except she'd called him a temptation. Except for one brief, perfect moment, she'd admitted that she cared. Dave pulled out his phone and typed a text. I understand why you're scared. I'm scared too. But I think you're worth the risk. He stared at it for 10 minutes before deleting it. Victoria had made her choice. The kind thing, the respectful thing, was to let her go. His phone rang at 11:47 p.m. Unknown number. Hello. Silence. Then, I'm in my car outside your house. This is insane. I should leave. Dave's heart stopped. Victoria. I can't do this. I can't be the person who has breakfast and friends and complications. But I can't stop thinking about you either, and I don't know what to do with that. He looked out his front window. Sure enough, a black Bentley was parked at the curb, engine running. Come inside, he said. That's a terrible idea. Probably. Come inside anyway. He heard the car door open, heard her heels on his driveway. She was still in work clothes at midnight, saw her silhouette in his porch light, perfect and terrifying. Dave opened the door before she could knock. Victoria stood there, and for the first time since he'd met her, she looked uncertain. Her hair had escaped its severe bun. Her makeup was smudged. She was clutching her phone like a lifeline. I don't know how to do this, she said. Do what? Want something I can't control. Want someone. She looked at him with those sharp eyes gone soft. Want you. Dave stepped back. Come in. We'll figure it out. And Victoria Morgan, who'd spent 24 years choosing power over connection, who'd built an empire on the ashes of her capacity to be vulnerable, who'd convinced herself that being alone was the same as being strong, she stepped across his threshold. I'm going to mess this up, she warned. I'm going to be difficult and closed off, and I'll probably hurt you without meaning to. I know. And you still want to try? Dave closed the door behind her, sealing them into his small, warm house with its scuffed floors and Sophie's soccer cleats by the stairs, and all the beautiful mess of a real life. Yeah, he said. I really do. Victoria kissed him. It was desperate and clumsy and perfect, like someone who'd forgotten how to be touched, learning all over again. When they broke apart, she was crying. I haven't cried in 16 years, she said, sounding amazed. That's nothing to be proud of. I know. I'm starting to realize a lot of what I thought was strength was just cowardice in expensive shoes. Dave pulled her close, feeling her shake against him. You're the bravest person I know. It takes guts to admit you want something. I want this. I want you. I want whatever this becomes. She pulled back to look at him. But David, I'm going to need you to be patient with me. I don't know how to be someone's person. Lucky for you, I'm an excellent teacher. She almost laughed. This is insane. We've known each other 3 months. I'm your former client. You have a daughter to think about. There are 1,000 reasons this is a terrible idea. There's one reason it's a good one. What's that? When I'm with you, I feel like myself again. Not just Sophie's dad or the guy who fixes thermostats. Just me, and I think maybe you feel the same. Victoria nodded slowly. I do. God help me, I do. They stood in his entryway holding each other like lifelines. Two people who'd lost themselves in different ways, finding something like home in the last place they'd expected. From upstairs, a small voice called, Dad, is someone here? Victoria tensed. I should go. Stay. Dave took her hand. Sophie should meet the woman who's been making her father happy. I'll terrify her. You terrify everyone. She'll survive. Sophie appeared at the top of the stairs in her rocket ship pajamas, squinting at the light. Her eyes went wide when she saw Victoria. You're the CEO lady. Victoria looked helpless, completely out of her depth. I am. I'm sorry we woke you. Are you dating my dad? Sophie. Dave started. I'd like to, Victoria said, and the honesty in her voice made Dave fall a little more in love with her courage. If that's okay with you. Sophie studied her with the intensity only a 10-year-old can manage. Do you make him happy? I'm going to try. Do you like soccer? Victoria blinked at the non sequitur. I've never been to a game. Dad, she's never been to a soccer game. That's sad. Sophie came down the stairs. I have practice Saturday. You should come. Then you can decide if you like soccer and if you like us. Sophie Ms. Morgan is very busy. I'll be there, Victoria said. What time? And that's how Victoria Morgan, CEO of Morgan Industries, worth approximately $2.3 billion, ended up at a youth soccer field at 9 a.m. on a Saturday, wearing designer jeans that probably cost more than Dave's mortgage payment, learning the offside rule from a 10-year-old who decided that anyone dating her father needed to understand the important things in life. Dave watched them, Sophie explaining some complex play strategy, Victoria listening with the same intensity she brought to board meetings, and thought maybe, just maybe, they'd all be okay. But that was before the photos, before the scandal, before Victoria's board tried to destroy everything they were building. That came later. For now, for this one perfect Saturday morning, they were just 3 people figuring out how to be a family. Sophie scored twice that first game, and Victoria cheered so loudly that other parents stared. Dave found himself grinning like an idiot watching this woman who terrified boardrooms completely lose her composure over a 10-year-old's footwork. Did you see that? Victoria grabbed his arm. She completely faked out that defender. That was brilliant. She gets it from her mother. Michelle played in college. Victoria's grip loosened slightly. I'm sorry. I didn't mean to. Don't. Dave covered her hand with his. Michelle's part of our story. You don't have to tiptoe around her memory. I don't know the rules for this. There aren't any. We make them up as we go. After the game, they went for ice cream. Sophie ordered a cone bigger than her head and proceeded to interrogate Victoria with the subtlety of a federal prosecutor. What's your favorite color? I don't have one. Sophie looked horrified. Everyone has a favorite color. Fine, navy blue. That's boring. Mine's purple. What's your favorite food? I don't particularly enjoy food. Dad, she doesn't like food. Is she an alien? Victoria laughed that real laugh Dave had heard exactly 3 times before. Maybe I am. Would that be a problem? Depends. Do aliens like dogs? Because I'm getting a dog for my birthday, and if you're going to date Dad, you have to like dogs. Dave nearly choked on his coffee. Sophie, we haven't talked about a dog. We're talking about it now, Ms. Morgan. Do aliens like dogs? Victoria looked at Dave, something soft in her expression. I've never had a dog, but I'm willing to learn. Good. You can help me pick one out. Sophie returned to her ice cream, the matter apparently settled. They walked back to Dave's truck, Sophie running ahead to look in shop windows. Victoria stayed close to Dave's side, their hands almost touching. She's amazing, Victoria said quietly. She's a handful. She's exactly what I'd hoped for if I'd ever thought about having children. Victoria stopped walking. Which I haven't. Thought about it, I mean. Children were never part of my plan. And now I'm standing in downtown Denver eating ice cream with a man I met 3 months ago and his daughter, who just assigned me homework on dog breeds. I don't have plans anymore. I have chaos. Is that bad? Victoria looked at him. Really looked at him. It's terrifying. But it's the first thing that's felt real in 20 years. They managed 2 weeks of quiet before the storm hit. 2 weeks of Saturday soccer games and Wednesday dinners at Dave's house where Victoria learned to make spaghetti without burning it. 2 weeks of Sophie slowly warming to this strange woman who asked questions about math homework with the same intensity she probably brought to corporate acquisitions. 2 weeks of Dave falling completely irrevocably in love with someone who still flinched when he reached for her hand in public. Then came the photographs. Dave was in the maintenance office on a Tuesday morning when his supervisor knocked on his open door. Sullivan, we need to talk. Jerry Kowalski was 58, balding, and had worked at Morgan Industries for 30 years. He was also one of the few people Dave considered a real friend. What's up, Jerry? Jerry closed the door. HR called me this morning. There's some concern about your relationship with Ms. Morgan. Dave's stomach dropped. What kind of concern? The kind where someone took photos of you two at that Italian place on Larimer Street last Thursday. The kind where those photos are now on some gossip website with a headline about the CEO slumming it with maintenance staff. Let me see. Jerry pulled out his phone. The photos were grainy but clear enough, Victoria and Dave at their corner table laughing over wine. Her hand on his arm. The look on her face that Dave now recognized as happiness breaking through decades of carefully constructed armor. The headline read, Morgan Industries CEO's secret romance billionaire boss, dating building maintenance man. Jesus. It gets worse. Jerry scrolled down. They've got pictures of you at Sophie's soccer game. There's speculation about whether Ms. Morgan is using company resources to benefit a romantic partner. The board is apparently losing their minds. Dave sat down hard. This is going to destroy her. What about you, Sullivan? You know the fraternization policy. You could lose your job. I don't care about the job. You've got a kid to support. I care about Victoria. They're going to tear her apart for this. Dave grabbed his phone. I need to talk to her. She's in emergency board meetings all morning. HR said no contact until they figure out how to handle this. That's insane. That's corporate. Look, keep your head down. Don't talk to any reporters. And for God's sake, don't go up to the executive floor until this blows over. Dave spent the morning trying to work and failing. He checked his phone every 30 seconds. Victoria hadn't called, hadn't texted. He tried reaching her office and got her assistant. I'm sorry, Mr. Sullivan. Ms. Morgan is in meetings all day and has asked not to be disturbed. Can you at least tell her I called? A pause. I'll make sure she gets the message. She never called back. By afternoon, the story had spread beyond gossip sites. Local news picked it up. Business reporters started calling it a potential ethics violation. Someone dug up Dave's bankruptcy filing from 2009 and started questioning whether he was using Victoria for money. Sophie called him at 3:30, crying. Dad, kids at school are saying mean things. They're saying you're using some rich lady and that you're a gold digger. What's a gold digger? Dave closed his eyes. I'm coming to get you. Pack your stuff. But I have soccer practice. Not today. We're going home. He found Sophie outside the school office, her face blotchy from crying. She threw herself at him. Why are people so mean? Because they don't understand. And because sometimes people would rather believe the worst than give others the benefit of the doubt. He held her tight. But we know the truth, right? I care about Victoria because she's smart and funny and kind when she lets herself be. Not because of her money. I know, Dad. But what if she doesn't know? That was the question that kept Dave up that night. What if Victoria, who'd spent her whole life being used for what she could provide, who'd armored herself against vulnerability, who'd already told him she didn't know how to do this? What if she believed he'd been playing her? He tried calling her cell. It went straight to voicemail. He texted, "We need to talk, please." Nothing. At 11 p.m. his doorbell rang. Dave opened it, expecting Victoria. Instead, he found a man in an expensive suit holding a briefcase. David Sullivan. Yes. I'm Richard Chen, Senior Counsel for Morgan Industries. Ms. Morgan asked me to deliver this. He handed Dave an envelope. She also wanted me to convey that she thinks it's best if you don't attempt to contact her for the time being. Dave's hands shook as he opened the envelope. Inside was a check for $50,000 and a letter. David, I'm sorry. This was a mistake. I should never have let it go this far. The board is threatening a vote of no confidence. The stockholders are panicking. There are legitimate questions about ethics violations that could cost people their jobs. I can't be responsible for that kind of damage. The money should help with Sophie's college fund and whatever disruption this causes to your employment. Please don't contact me. This is cleaner for both of us. V. Dave looked at the lawyer. She sent you instead of coming herself. Ms. Morgan felt it was more professional this way. Professional. Dave laughed, and it came out bitter. Right, of course. I'm authorized to offer an additional settlement if you sign a non-disclosure agreement regarding your relationship with Ms. Morgan. Get off my porch. Mr. Sullivan, I said get off my porch before I do something unprofessional. Chen left. Dave stood in his doorway holding a check that felt like blood money and a letter that felt like a kick to the chest. She'd run. The moment things got hard, the moment her armor was threatened, she'd run. He should have expected it. She'd warned him, hadn't she? Told him she didn't know how to do this, that she'd mess it up, that she was too damaged for anything real. But he'd believed she was braver than her fear. Dave ripped the check in half. The next morning he called in sick to work. He couldn't face that building, couldn't walk those halls knowing Victoria was 42 floors above him, choosing her empire over everything else. Sophie found him at the kitchen table, staring at his coffee. You look sad. I am sad, sweetheart. Because Ms. Morgan broke up with you. How did you? I heard you talking to that lawyer last night. Walls are thin. She climbed into the chair next to him. Are you going to fight for her? I don't think she wants me to. That's dumb. Mom always said if something's worth having, it's worth fighting for. Is Ms. Morgan worth having? Dave looked at his daughter, this wise, fierce little person who'd survived cancer and her mother's death and was somehow still brave enough to believe in love. Yeah, she is. Then why are you sitting here? Because sometimes loving someone means respecting their choices, even when those choices hurt. Sophie scowled. That's the most grown-up stupid thing I've ever heard. Despite everything, Dave smiled. Probably. I think she's scared. I think she wants to be with us, but she doesn't know how to choose us over her company. Sophie grabbed his hand. You should tell her it's okay to be scared. You should tell her we're not going anywhere. She sent a lawyer, Soph. She didn't even have the guts to face me. Because she's scared, duh. Sophie rolled her eyes with the exasperation only a 10-year-old can muster. When I'm scared, I do dumb things too. Remember when I hid my report card because I got a B in math? Same thing. This is a little different than a report card. Is it? She's scared of failing at something that matters, so she's running away before she can fail. Sophie stood up. But you're not going to let her write, because that's what you do. You show up even when it's hard. Dave pulled his daughter into a hug. When did you get smarter than me? I've always been smarter. You're just slow. He spent the day trying to figure out what to do. He couldn't just show up at Morgan Industries. Security wouldn't let him near the executive floor. He couldn't call, she wouldn't answer. He couldn't send a letter, she'd probably have an assistant throw it away. He needed something she couldn't ignore. At 6 p.m., he made a decision that was probably career suicide, but felt right anyway. He got dressed in his one good suit, dropped Sophie at his brother Tom's house, and drove to Morgan Industries. The evening shift security guard was Marcus, who Dave had helped fix a plumbing issue in his apartment building last year. Dave, you're not on the evening schedule. I need to see Ms. Morgan. Marcus looked uncomfortable. Man, there's a note in the system. You're not cleared for executive access anymore. Marcus, I'm not here to cause trouble. I just need 5 minutes. You know I could lose my job for this. I know, and I wouldn't ask if it wasn't important. Marcus studied him for a long moment. Then he sighed. Elevator 3. She's still in her office. But Dave, you didn't get in through me. Never saw you. Dave rode the elevator up, his heart hammering. He had no plan, no speech prepared. He just knew that letting Victoria run without fighting was the coward's way out, and Michelle hadn't raised a coward. Victoria's assistant had gone home. The executive floor was empty, except for the lights still on in the corner office. Dave knocked on the open door. Victoria looked up from her laptop. For a second, her face showed everything: surprise, hope, fear. Then the mask slammed down. You shouldn't be here. Yeah, I got that message, along with the check and the lawyer. Dave stepped into her office. Nice touch, by the way. Very professional. David, you want to break up with me? Fine. You want to choose your company over us. That's your right. But you're going to have the guts to do it to my face. Victoria stood. This isn't about guts. This is about reality. The board is threatening to remove me. Our stock dropped 6% in one day. There are allegations of ethics violations that could trigger SEC investigations. So you're going to pretend the last 2 months didn't happen. I'm going to do what I should have done from the start. Maintain professional boundaries and not let personal complications destroy what I've built. Personal complications. Dave laughed without humor. Is that what I am? What Sophie is? That's not what I meant. Isn't it? Because that letter made it pretty clear. You're buying me off and moving on like I was a bad investment. Victoria's composure cracked. I'm trying to protect you. Do you understand what they're saying about you? That you're using me for money? That you're a con artist? That you're putting your daughter in danger by exposing her to media scrutiny? The board wants to investigate whether you've received any improper benefits from our relationship. Let them investigate. I've got nothing to hide. This will destroy your reputation, destroy any chance you have of rebuilding your engineering career. I don't care about my reputation. I care about you. Well, you shouldn't. Victoria's voice rose. I told you I would mess this up. I told you I didn't know how to do this. You should have listened. Why? So I could protect myself from feeling something real for the first time since my wife died. Dave moved closer. So I could keep Sophie safe from having someone else in her life who might actually stick around. You think running away is protecting us, but all you're doing is proving that everyone who ever called you cold was right. The words landed like a slap. Victoria's face went white. Get out. No. I said get out of my office. Make me. Dave stood his ground. Call security. Have me arrested. But I'm not leaving until you stop hiding behind your fear. I'm not hiding. You are. You're terrified that you might actually be happy, that you might actually deserve something good. That maybe your father's death wasn't some cosmic punishment that means you have to suffer forever. How dare you bring my father into this? He wouldn't want this for you. Dave's voice broke. He wouldn't want you alone in this glass tower, sacrificing everything that makes life worth living for some misguided idea of honoring his memory. Victoria's hands were shaking. You don't know anything about my father. I know he died loving you. I know he'd want you to be loved. And I know you're throwing that away because you're more comfortable with loneliness than risking your heart. Silence. Victoria turned away, her shoulders rigid. When she spoke, her voice was barely audible. My father died because he was soft, because he cared more about being liked than being respected, because he let his emotions cloud his judgment, and it cost him everything. That's not true. He had chest pains for 3 months before he saw a doctor. 3 months. But he was too busy being everyone's friend. Too busy coaching my soccer team and attending company picnics and being the beloved CEO who everyone adored. And by the time he finally admitted something was wrong, the cancer had spread everywhere. Victoria's voice was raw. He chose being loved over surviving. I will not make the same mistake. Dave felt his anger drain away, replaced by something that hurt worse. Victoria, that's not what killed your father. The cancer killed him. The cancer killed him because he was weak. The cancer killed him because that's what cancer does. It has nothing to do with strength or weakness, or any of the stories you've been telling yourself. She turned back to face him, tears streaming down her face. I watched him waste away because he refused to prioritize his health over everyone else's feelings. I watched my mother fall apart because she'd built her entire identity around being his wife. I promised myself I would never be that vulnerable, never let another person have that much power over my life. So you decided to have no life at all. I have a life. I have this company. I have success. I have nothing. Dave's voice was gentle now. You have nothing that matters, Victoria. No one to come home to. No one to share your victories with. No one who cares about you instead of what you can do for them. I have you. Do you? Because from where I'm standing, you just fired me as your boyfriend through a lawyer. Victoria sank into her chair. I don't know how to do this. I don't know how to be vulnerable and strong at the same time. You don't have to be strong all the time. Yes, I do. The moment I show weakness, the board will use it against me. The competition will smell blood. Everything I've built will crumble. Dave knelt in front of her chair, taking her hands. Then, let it crumble. She looked at him like he was insane. What? If your company requires you to be alone and miserable to survive, then maybe it's not worth saving. Maybe it's time to build something new. You're asking me to give up everything I've worked for. I'm asking you to choose yourself over your fear, to choose us over your armor. He squeezed her hands. I'm asking you to be brave enough to want something more than success. Victoria pulled her hands away. I can't. I'm sorry, but I can't. Dave stood. His heart was breaking, but he forced himself to nod. Okay. Okay? You get to make your own choices, even the ones that hurt. He headed for the door, then stopped. But I need you to know something. I love you. Not your money, not your success, not what you can do for me. Just you. The woman who laughs at bad jokes and asks Sophie about soccer strategy and burns spaghetti sauce because she's too stubborn to ask for help. David, I love the fact that you're terrified right now and still haven't thrown me out. I love that you care enough about me to push me away because you think it's protecting me. I love every complicated, difficult, beautiful part of you. He looked at her one last time. Michelle taught me that life's too short to play it safe. She fought cancer with everything she had because she wanted every extra day with Sophie and me. She didn't get that choice, but you do. I'm not her. No, you're not. But you could learn from her. Michelle wasn't brave because she wasn't scared. She was brave because she was terrified and she fought anyway. Dave opened the door. I'll be at Sophie's soccer game Saturday, 9 a.m. Washington Park. If you decide you want to fight for this for us, you know where to find me." He left before she could respond, rode the elevator down with his heart in pieces, walked past Marcus with a nod of thanks, drove home and held Sophie when she asked if Miss Morgan was coming back. "I don't know, sweetheart." "Did you tell her how you feel?" "I did." "Then she'll come. She's smart. Smart people don't walk away from people who love them." Dave hoped his daughter was right. But as the days passed with no word from Victoria, he started to accept that sometimes even smart people made stupid choices. Friday night, Jerry called. "Sullivan, we need to talk about your employment status." "I'm fired." The opposite, actually. Ms. Morgan personally intervened with HR, said the relationship was entirely outside work hours, that you never received any special treatment, and that any suggestion otherwise was actionable slander. Jerry paused. "She also increased our department's budget by 20% and approved that heating system overhaul you've been requesting for 2 years. She did what? She's protecting you, Dave, even while she's pushing you away." Dave sat down. "That doesn't make any sense." "Sure it does. She loves you, but she's too scared to do anything about it. So she's protecting you the only way she knows how. By destroying herself. By trying to give you everything except what you actually want." Saturday morning arrived cold and clear. Dave and Sophie got to the soccer field early. He helped her warm up, pretending his eyes weren't scanning the parking lot for a black Bentley. 9 o'clock came and went. The game started. Sophie scored in the first 10 minutes, her eyes searching the sidelines for someone who wasn't there. Halftime. Still no Victoria. Dave was trying to convince himself he'd been stupid to hope when Sophie grabbed his arm. "Dad, look." He turned. Victoria was walking across the field in jeans and a Morgan Industries sweatshirt, looking completely out of place and absolutely perfect. Her hair was down. No makeup. No armor. Just her. She stopped a few feet away. "I'm sorry I'm late. I had to fire my entire board first." Dave stared. "You what?" "They gave me an ultimatum. You or the company. So I chose." Victoria's smile was shaky. "Turns out I'm really bad at playing it safe." Sophie launched herself at Victoria, nearly knocking her over. You came. "Of course I came. I had to see if you'd teach me that move you were working on." Victoria looked at Dave over Sophie's head. "And I had to tell your father that he was right." "About what?" "About everything. About me hiding. About being more comfortable with loneliness than love. About my life being empty without people who matter in it." She set Sophie down and moved closer to Dave. "I spent 24 years building walls. You tore them down in 3 months. That terrified me. So I ran. And now? Now I'm done running. I don't know how to be vulnerable. I don't know how to put someone else first. I don't know how to be part of a family. But I want to learn." Her voice dropped. "If you'll still have me." Dave pulled her close. "You fired your board for me." "I fired my board for us. For the chance to build something that isn't just about money and power and never being weak." Victoria buried her face in his shoulder. "They were right about one thing. I'm not fit to run that company if I can't put people before profit. What are you going to do?" "I'm going to promote my VP to interim CEO while I figure out what I actually want. I'm going to spend less time in that office and more time at soccer games. I'm going to learn how to cook something besides toast." She pulled back to look at him. "I'm going to try to deserve you." "You already do." "I sent you away with a check and a lawyer." "You came back. That's what matters." Victoria kissed him there on the soccer field with Sophie cheering and other parents staring, and none of it mattering at all. When they broke apart, she was crying again. "I really am terrible at this." "You're perfect at this," Dave said. "Now sit down and watch your daughter play soccer. We'll figure out the rest later." And Victoria Morgan, who'd spent a lifetime putting business before everything, who'd thought love was a weakness she couldn't afford, who'd built an empire on the ashes of her capacity to be vulnerable, sat on a bench at a youth soccer field and learned what it felt like to choose happiness over fear. The photos from that day would eventually surface online. Victoria kissing Dave on the sidelines. Victoria screaming herself hoarse when Sophie scored. Victoria sitting between Dave and his brother Tom, looking more relaxed than she had in photographs since she was 12 years old. The headlines would be brutal. The stockholders would panic. The business press would have a field day. But for now, for this one perfect morning, none of that mattered. They were just three people learning how to be a family. The storm hit Monday morning at exactly 8:15 a.m., when Morgan Industries stock dropped 18% in the first hour of trading. Victoria's phone started ringing before the market even opened. She was at Dave's kitchen table teaching Sophie long division and burning toast when her CFO called. "Victoria, the stockholders are calling for an emergency meeting. The drop this morning wiped out $400 million in market cap." "Let it drop." "Excuse me." "I said let it drop, Marcus. The fundamentals of the company haven't changed. The only thing that's changed is that I'm dating someone, and apparently Wall Street thinks that makes me incompetent." Sophie looked up from her math worksheet. "Are you in trouble?" Victoria covered the phone. "Nothing I can't handle, sweetheart." "Victoria, you need to take this seriously," Marcus said. "The board replacement you announced Friday has investors spooked. They think you've lost your mind." "I fired a board that tried to control my personal life. That's not losing my mind. That's finding it." Victoria watched Dave scrape burnt toast into the trash. "Schedule the stockholder meeting for next Friday. I'll address their concerns then." "What are you going to tell them?" "The truth. That I'm still the same CEO who tripled their investment in 5 years. I'm just doing it with a healthier work-life balance now." She hung up. Dave set a plate of perfectly browned toast in front of her. Trouble. Nothing new. Apparently choosing happiness over misery is bad for stock prices. "You could fix this." Dave sat down across from her. "Go back to the office, put out a statement saying we broke up, rebuild your reputation." "Is that what you want?" "I want you to be sure. You've given up a lot for this. For us." Victoria reached across the table and took his hand. "I gave up nothing that mattered. I gave up fear pretending to be strength. That's not a sacrifice. That's liberation." Sophie made a gagging noise. "You guys are gross." "Finish your math," Dave said. "I will if Ms. Morgan helps me. Dad's terrible at explaining division." "I am not terrible." "You kind of are," Victoria said. She moved to sit next to Sophie. "Okay, think of it like this. You have 48 cookies, and you need to divide them equally among 6 people. How many does each person get?" Sophie's face scrunched in concentration. 8. "Perfect. Now show me how you got there." Dave watched them work together, heads bent over the worksheet, and felt something tight in his chest loosen. This was right. Whatever chaos was happening in the business world, this was the thing that mattered. His phone rang. Jerry. "Dave, you need to get down here. There's a situation." "What kind of situation?" "The kind where reporters are camped outside the building asking maintenance staff questions about you and Ms. Morgan. Corporate wants everyone to keep their mouths shut, but you know how that goes." Dave closed his eyes. "I'll be there in 30. He drove to Morgan Industries with a knot in his stomach. The reporters were obvious, clustered near the main entrance with cameras and microphones. Dave used the service entrance and found Jerry waiting. "This is insane," Jerry said. "They're treating you like you committed a crime." "In their world, I kind of did. Dating above my pay grade. That's classist bullshit." "Yeah, well, classist bullshit pays our salaries." Dave clocked in and headed for the maintenance office. He made it maybe 10 feet before he heard his name. "Mr. Sullivan, can you comment on your relationship with Victoria Morgan?" He turned. A reporter had somehow gotten into the service corridor, cameraman in tow. "No comment." "Is it true you met while you were fixing her thermostat? Did you plan the relationship to gain access to her wealth?" I said no comment. How does your daughter feel about being thrust into the spotlight? Some would say you're putting her at risk for your own financial gain. Dave stopped walking. You want a comment? Here's a comment. I love Victoria Morgan. Not her money, not her position, just her. And my daughter is none of your damn business. So you admit the relationship is romantic despite the power imbalance. There's no power imbalance. We're two adults who care about each other. That's it. Dave stepped closer to the camera. And if you or anyone else approaches my daughter for a story, I will make your life very difficult. Are we clear? He walked away before the reporter could ask more questions. His hands were shaking. Jerry caught up with him. That's going to be on the news tonight. Good. Let them show it. I'm done hiding. The video went viral by lunchtime. Dave defending his relationship, his voice fierce, his face showing everything he felt. The business networks played it on loop. Social media exploded with takes ranging from supportive to vicious. Victoria called at 1 p.m. I saw the video. I'm sorry. I should have kept my mouth shut. Are you kidding? That was the sexiest thing I've ever seen. Her voice was warm. You defended us. You defended Sophie. You stood there in your work coveralls and told the world exactly where you stand. I made it worse, didn't I? You made it honest. That's better than worse. Dave leaned against the wall of the maintenance office. How are you holding up? I've had better Mondays, but I've also had worse. At least this time I'm not facing it alone. You're never alone again. Not if I have anything to say about it. Victoria was quiet for a moment. David, I need to tell you something. The stockholder meeting Friday. It could go badly. They might vote to remove me as CEO entirely. Would that be the worst thing? I built this company from nothing. It's been my entire identity for 24 years. Maybe it's time to build a new identity. As what, your girlfriend who used to run a billion-dollar company? As Victoria. Just Victoria. The woman who's learning to cook and teaching Sophie math and figuring out that there's more to life than quarterly earnings. That's terrifying. Most good things are. She laughed softly. How did I survive 47 years without you? Badly, from what I can tell. Fair point. A knock in the background. I have to go. Conference call with the lawyers. But David. Yeah. Thank you for defending us, for not being ashamed of what we are. I could never be ashamed of you. After she hung up, Dave tried to focus on work. He had a clogged drain on the 15th floor and a faulty breaker in the parking garage. Normal maintenance issues that felt absurdly mundane compared to the circus happening around his relationship. He was elbow deep in the drain when his phone rang again. Unknown number. Hello? Mr. Sullivan, this is Diane Reeves from the Denver Post. I'm working on a feature about your relationship with Victoria Morgan, and I was hoping... Dave hung up. The phone rang again immediately. Different number. This is Todd Brennan from Business Week. He turned off his phone. By Tuesday, the story had gone national. Every major business outlet was covering it. The narrative had split into two camps. One side saw it as a romantic story of love crossing class boundaries. The other saw it as evidence of Victoria's poor judgment and Dave's opportunism. Sophie's school called Wednesday morning. Mr. Sullivan, we've had some reporters trying to access the campus. We've turned them away, but Sophie seems upset. Can you come pick her up? Dave was there in 15 minutes. He found Sophie in the principal's office, her face red and blotchy. Some man tried to take my picture at recess, she said, climbing into his arms. He said he wanted to ask me about Ms. Morgan. I told him to go away, but he kept following me. White-hot rage flooded through Dave. Did he touch you? No. The teacher saw and made him leave. But Dad, I'm scared. Why do people care so much about who you date? Because grown-ups are stupid sometimes. He held her tight. I'm so sorry, sweetheart. This shouldn't be happening to you. Are you going to stop seeing Ms. Morgan? To make it stop? Dave pulled back to look at his daughter. Is that what you want? Sophie thought about it seriously. No, I like her. She's nice to me, and she makes you happy. But I don't like people being mean to you because of her. People are going to be mean no matter what we do. The question is whether we let that stop us from being happy. Mom wouldn't have let it stop her. No, she wouldn't have. Then we shouldn't either. Sophie wiped her eyes. Can we get ice cream? Ice cream makes everything better. They got ice cream. Then Dave called Victoria. A reporter tried to photograph Sophie at school. Victoria's intake of breath was sharp. Is she okay? She's scared. I'm scared. This is getting out of control. I'll hire security, for both of you, and I'll get a restraining order against any press trying to approach Sophie. Victoria, that's not, it's necessary. They crossed a line. I won't let them hurt her. Her voice was steel. Give me an hour. By Thursday, Sophie had a discreet security detail, and a legal team had sent cease and desist letters to every major news outlet. The message was clear. The kid was off limits. It helped. Slightly. But the damage was done. Sophie was having nightmares. Dave was jumping at shadows. And Victoria was drowning in crisis management. Thursday night, Dave's brother Tom showed up at the house with pizza and beer. You look like hell, Tom said. Thanks, that's helpful. I'm serious. When's the last time you slept? Dave couldn't remember. I'm fine. You're not fine. You're in the middle of a media circus dating a billionaire while raising a traumatized kid. That's not fine. That's a disaster waiting to happen. You think I should end it? Tom sat down at the kitchen table. I think you should be honest about what this is costing you. Not just you, but Sophie. Sophie likes Victoria. Sophie likes the idea of you being happy. But she's also having nightmares about reporters. She's 10, Dave. This is a lot. So what do you suggest I walk away from the first real thing I've felt since Michelle died? I give up because it's hard. I suggest you think about whether this relationship is worth the collateral damage. Tom opened his beer. Michelle would want you to be happy, but she'd want Sophie safe more. Dave knew his brother was right. He also knew he couldn't walk away from Victoria. Not now. Not when she'd chosen him over her empire. Not when she was fighting just as hard as he was to make this work. Friday morning arrived with a mix of dread and determination. Victoria's stockholder meeting was at 10 a.m. Dave wanted to be there, but Victoria had insisted he stay away. This is my fight, she'd said. Let me handle it. So Dave went to work, tried to focus on fixing a broken elevator on the 23rd floor, and waited for his phone to ring. It rang at 11:30. How bad? He asked without preamble. They voted me out. Victoria's voice was steady, but he could hear the hurt underneath. Effective immediately. The new CEO takes over Monday. Jesus. Victoria, I'm so sorry. Don't be. I knew it was coming. And honestly, she laughed, but it sounded watery. I feel relieved, like I've been carrying something heavy for 24 years and someone finally told me I could put it down. Where are you? In my office. Well, what used to be my office. They're giving me an hour to clear out. I'm coming up. David, you don't have to. I'm coming up. He found her standing by her window, looking out at the Denver skyline. Her office was already half-packed assistants scurrying around boxing up files and photographs. Hi, she said without turning around. Hi yourself. I just lost $1 billion company. I heard. I should be devastated. I should be planning my comeback, figuring out how to fight this burning everything down on my way out. She turned to face him. Instead, I'm standing here thinking about what Sophie and I should make for dinner tonight. Dave crossed to her, pulled her into his arms. What do you want to make? I have no idea. I still can't cook anything without burning it. Then we'll order pizza, and tomorrow we'll figure out what comes next. Victoria pressed her face against his shoulder. What if I'm nobody without this company? What if I don't know how to be just Victoria? Then we'll figure it out together, one burnt dinner at a time. She laughed through her tears. You're taking this remarkably well. Your girlfriend just became unemployed. My girlfriend just became free. He pulled back to look at her. Besides, you've got enough money to never work again. This isn't a crisis. It's an opportunity. An opportunity for what? To build something that actually matters. To spend time with people you love. To figure out who you are when you're not trying to prove something to ghosts. Victoria was quiet for a long moment. Then she nodded. Okay. Okay. Okay, let's go get Sophie from school and order pizza and figure out what comes next. She looked around her office one last time. This place was my prison. I just didn't realize it until you showed me what freedom looked like. They left Morgan Industries together, walking out through the main entrance where reporters were waiting. Dave took Victoria's hand and didn't let go. Ms. Morgan, how do you feel about being forced out? Any comment on the stockholder vote? Are you planning legal action? Victoria stopped at the top of the stairs. Dave started to pull her forward, but she squeezed his hand. I have a statement, she said. The reporters surged forward. Cameras clicked. Dave felt Victoria take a deep breath. For 24 years, I believed success meant sacrifice. That being strong meant being alone. That love was a luxury I couldn't afford. She looked at Dave. I was wrong about all of it. Yes, I was voted out today. Yes, I lost my position. But I gained something infinitely more valuable. I gained the courage to choose happiness over fear. So you're admitting the relationship affected your judgment. I'm admitting that my judgment was flawed long before David Sullivan came into my life. I spent 2 decades building a company while neglecting to build a life. That ends now. What will you do next? Victoria smiled. I'm going to pick up my boyfriend's daughter from school. Then we're going to order pizza and watch her soccer highlights. And tomorrow, I'm going to wake up next to someone who loves me for reasons that have nothing to do with my net worth. That's my plan. That's my future. Do you have any regrets? She considered the question seriously. I regret waiting so long to be brave. I regret letting fear dictate my choices for so long. But I don't regret David. I don't regret Sophie. And I don't regret choosing them over a company that demanded I sacrifice my humanity to succeed. Dave felt his throat tighten. This woman, who'd spent her life armored and alone, was standing in front of the entire business world admitting she'd been wrong, admitting she'd chosen love, admitting she was human. One more question. What would you say to women who see your story as a cautionary tale about mixing business with personal life? Victoria's smile was fierce. I'd say stop letting other people's fear dictate your choices. Stop believing that success requires loneliness. Stop thinking you have to choose between being powerful and being loved. She squeezed Dave's hand. You can have both. You can be both. You just have to be brave enough to try. They walked down the stairs together, cameras flashing, reporters shouting questions. Dave didn't hear any of it. He just held Victoria's hand and thought about how far they'd both come from that elevator 3 months ago. They picked up Sophie from school. She threw herself at Victoria. I heard you got fired. Are you sad? A little, Victoria admitted. But mostly I'm excited. Excited about what? About having time to come to all your soccer games. About learning to make something besides toast. About figuring out what I want to be when I grow up. Sophie giggled. You're already grown up. Maybe. But I'm just starting to learn how to live. That night they ordered pizza and watched Sophie's soccer highlights for the 3rd time that week. Victoria sat between Dave and Sophie on the couch, her head on Dave's shoulder, Sophie's hand in hers. This is nice, Sophie said through a mouthful of pepperoni. Yeah, Victoria agreed. It really is. Dave looked at these 2 people who'd become his whole world. Michelle would have liked Victoria, he thought, would have appreciated her sharp mind and her fierce determination, would have been proud of Sophie for being brave enough to open her heart to someone new. "What are you thinking about?" Victoria asked quietly. "Gratitude. For getting stuck in that elevator. For meeting you. For whatever cosmic force decided to give me a second chance at this. You think the universe planned this? I think the universe knew what we both needed, even when we didn't." Victoria turned to kiss him slow and sweet. Sophie made gagging noises, but didn't move away. Later, after Sophie was asleep, Dave and Victoria sat on his back porch with coffee and comfortable silence. "I'm scared," Victoria said finally. "Of what?" "Of not knowing what comes next. I've had a plan since I was 12 years old. Build the company, prove everyone wrong, never let anyone see me weak. Now I don't have a plan. I don't have a company. And I'm weaker than I've ever been." "You're not weak. You're honest. There's a difference." "Is there?" "Because right now, I feel like I'm falling and I don't know where I'll land." Dave pulled her closer. "You'll land right here. With us. With people who love you regardless of your job title or your bank account." "What if that's not enough? What if I need more than just this?" "Then we'll figure out what that more looks like, together." He kissed her temple. "You don't have to have all the answers tonight, Victoria. You just have to trust that we'll find them eventually." She nodded against his shoulder. "I'm not good at trust." "I've noticed. But you're learning. That's what matters." They sat in the darkness holding each other, two people who'd spent too long alone learning how to be together. It wasn't perfect. It wasn't easy. But it was real. And for the first time in 24 years, Victoria Morgan felt like that was enough. The first week after Victoria lost her job, she slept until 7 a.m. for the first time in 24 years. She woke up in Dave's bed, sunlight streaming through curtains that didn't block out enough light, and had a moment of pure panic before remembering she had nowhere to be. Dave was already up. She could hear him in the kitchen with Sophie, their voices a comfortable rhythm of morning routine. "Dad, where's the good cereal?" "We finished it yesterday. You've got oatmeal or toast." "That's child abuse." "That's breakfast. Pick one." Victoria smiled and pulled on one of Dave's shirts. It hung to her knees and smelled like him. She padded downstairs barefoot. Sophie looked up from her toast. "You're wearing Dad's shirt. Is that okay?" "I guess. It looks weird on you, though. You're too fancy for Dad's old shirts." "I'm not fancy anymore. I'm unemployed." "Unemployed fancy is still fancy." Sophie returned to her toast. "Are you going to live here now?" Victoria glanced at Dave, who was suddenly very interested in his coffee. "We haven't talked about that yet, sweetheart." "Why not? You're here every night anyway. Might as well make it official." "Sophie," Dave warned. "What? I'm just being logical. Ms. Morgan's apartment is like 40 minutes away. That's a waste of gas money." Victoria laughed. "You make a compelling argument." "I know, I'm gifted." Sophie grabbed her backpack. "I have soccer practice after school. Are you coming?" "Do you want me to?" "Duh. You're like our good luck charm now. We haven't lost a game since you started coming." After Sophie left for school, Dave poured Victoria more coffee and sat across from her at the kitchen table. "She's right, you know, about you being here every night." "Are you asking me to move in?" "I'm saying my house feels wrong when you're not in it." He reached for her hand. "But I also know it's fast. We've only been together 4 months. You just lost your job. Maybe you need time to figure out who you are without the company before you figure out who we are together." Victoria twisted her fingers through his. "What if I already know?" "Do you?" "I know I sleep better here than I ever did in my penthouse. I know Sophie makes me laugh more than I've laughed in 2 decades. I know when I wake up next to you, I don't immediately start planning my day because I'm already exactly where I want to be." She met his eyes. "That's terrifying and wonderful, and I don't want to lose it." "You won't lose it. Whether you live here or not, you're stuck with us now." "Is that a promise?" "That's a guarantee." Victoria spent the morning doing something she'd never done before. Nothing. She sat on Dave's couch with coffee and no laptop, no phone calls, no meetings. Just silence and time, and the strange freedom of having nowhere to be. It lasted maybe 45 minutes before she started going crazy. She cleaned the kitchen, organized Dave's spice rack alphabetically, started a grocery list, researched soccer drills for 10-year-olds, opened her laptop to check her stocks, and then closed it because she didn't have stocks anymore. The company had bought out her shares as part of the separation agreement. Her phone rang. Unknown number. She almost didn't answer. Victoria Morgan. Ms. Morgan, this is Patricia Chen from Harvard Business School. I'm calling about a teaching opportunity we'd like to discuss with you. Victoria sat up straighter. I'm listening. We're developing a new program on ethical leadership and sustainable business practices. Given your recent experience and your willingness to prioritize values over profit, we thought you'd be an excellent fit as a guest lecturer. You want me to teach ethics? I just got voted out of my own company. Exactly. You made difficult choices that cost you professionally, but aligned with your personal values. That's exactly the kind of real-world experience our students need to hear about. Victoria looked around Dave's living room with its worn furniture and family photos. When would this start? We're looking at fall semester. It would be one course meeting twice a week. You'd have flexibility to design the curriculum as you see fit. Can I think about it? Of course. Take your time. We'd be honored to have you, Ms. Morgan. After she hung up, Victoria sat with the phone in her hand. Teaching. She'd never considered it before, had never thought about sharing what she'd learned rather than just using it to accumulate more. Dave came home at lunch to check on her. You're supposed to be relaxing, he said, eyeing her organizational projects. I organized your spice rack. That's relaxing. That's you being unable to sit still. He pulled her into his arms. Talk to me. What's going on in that overactive brain? Harvard called. They want me to teach a course on ethical leadership. That's amazing. Is it? I don't know anything about teaching. I don't know if I'd be good at it. You're good at everything you actually try at. The question is whether you want to try. Victoria rested her head against his chest. I don't know what I want. For 24 years I wanted one thing. Build the company. Prove I wasn't weak like my father. Now I don't have the company, and I'm starting to think my father wasn't weak at all. He was just human, and I don't know what to do with that. So take time to figure it out. You don't have to make decisions today. I've always made decisions immediately. Analysis paralysis is for people without confidence. Or maybe immediate decisions are for people afraid of sitting with uncertainty. Dave pulled back to look at her. It's okay to not know, Victoria. It's okay to try things and fail. It's okay to be human. I'm terrible at being human. You're learning. That's different. That afternoon, Victoria went to Sophie's soccer practice. She sat in the bleachers with the other parents and tried not to feel like an alien species. The other mothers had known each other for years, had a comfortable rhythm of shared carpools and playdates and complaints about homework. One of them approached Victoria during a water break. You're Dave's girlfriend, right? The CEO. Former CEO, and yes. The woman stuck out her hand. Jennifer Martinez. My daughter plays defense. I just wanted to say I think what you did was brave. Victoria shook her hand, surprised. Thank you. My husband wanted me to quit my job when we had kids. Said I should prioritize family over career. I divorced him instead. Jennifer smiled. It's nice to see someone choosing what matters over what's expected. It didn't feel brave. It felt terrifying. That's how you know it was the right choice. Jennifer nodded toward the field where Sophie was practicing footwork. She's a good kid. Dave's done an amazing job with her. He really has. And now he's got help. That's good. Single parenting is brutal. Jennifer checked her watch. I've got to run, but if you ever want to grab coffee and talk about navigating this whole blended family thing, I'm around. Victoria watched her go, feeling something warm in her chest. An offer of friendship. From someone who didn't want anything except maybe company. It was such a foreign concept, she almost didn't recognize it. Sophie ran over at the end of practice, sweaty and grinning. "Did you see my goal? You were amazing. Coach says I should try out for the traveling team next season. But that's a lot of games, and Dad works weird hours sometimes." Sophie looked uncertain. "Do you think you'll still be around next season?" Victoria pulled Sophie into a hug, not caring about the sweat. "I'll be around as long as you'll have me, sweetheart." "Good, because the traveling team plays on Saturdays and I need my good luck charm." That night after Sophie was asleep, Victoria sat on the back porch with Dave and told him about Harvard's offer. "I think I want to do it," she said. "Teaching, sharing what I learned, even the painful parts, especially the painful parts." "Then do it. It means being in Boston twice a week. We'll make it work." "Dave, that's not fair to you. Or Sophie. You'd be doing all the parenting while I'm gone. So we'll adjust. Maybe I cut back my hours at Morgan Industries. Maybe I finally take that engineering consulting job that firm in Boulder offered me last month." Victoria turned to look at him. "What firm in Boulder?" "Hawthorne Environmental. They saw the work I did on the Colorado Springs facility and asked if I'd consult on a hospital project they're designing." Dave shrugged. "I said no because the hours were weird and I needed stability for Sophie, but if you're here to help with her, maybe I can say yes." "You turned down a job because of me. I turned down a job because Sophie comes first. But if we're doing this together, if we're building a life together, then maybe we both get to pursue things that matter. You teach, I consult. We figure out the logistics as we go." Victoria felt tears prick her eyes. "How are you so good at this?" "At what?" "At partnership. At not making it a competition. At wanting me to succeed even when it complicates your life." Dave pulled her close. "Because your success doesn't threaten mine. Your happiness doesn't diminish mine. We're not opponents, Victoria. We're on the same team." "I've never been on a team before." "I've noticed. But you're learning." 2 weeks later, Victoria moved into Dave's house. She sold her penthouse, donated most of her furniture, and packed her entire life into boxes that barely filled half of Dave's garage. It was humbling and liberating in equal measure. Sophie helped her unpack, offering running commentary on every item. "Why do you have so many boring clothes?" "They're professional." "They're sad. We need to take you shopping." Sophie held up a gray blazer. "This looks like something a robot would wear." "I wore that to board meetings." "Exactly. Robot clothes." Sophie tossed it in a pile. "We're donating this. You need color." Victoria looked at Dave, who was grinning. "Your daughter is bossy. She gets it from her mother." He sobered slightly. "Michelle would have liked you, you know. Would have appreciated anyone who could keep up with Sophie's energy." "I miss her sometimes," Sophie said quietly. "But I think she'd be happy you found Ms. Morgan. She told me once that love multiplies, it doesn't divide. I think she meant there's always room for more people to love." Victoria pulled Sophie into a hug. "Your mom was very wise." "I know. Dad says I got her brains and his stubbornness. That's why I'm going to rule the world someday." "I don't doubt it for a second." That night, lying in bed next to Dave, Victoria stared at the ceiling and tried to identify the feeling in her chest. "I think I'm happy," she said. Dave rolled to face her. "You think? I'm not sure. I've never felt it before. How do you know if you're happy or just comfortable? Does it matter? I spent so long chasing things I thought would make me happy. Success, wealth, proving everyone wrong. And none of it ever did. Now I'm living in a house a quarter the size of my penthouse, unemployed, sharing a bathroom with a 10-year-old who uses all the hot water. And I feel like I could float away. That's happiness." "How do you know?" "Because I feel the same way. Every morning I wake up and you're here, and I think maybe I get to keep this. Maybe I don't have to go back to just surviving." Dave kissed her forehead. "That's happiness, Victoria. The ordinary, everyday kind. Not the fireworks kind. The coming home kind." Victoria turned into his arms. I love you. I know. No, I mean, I love you in a way that terrifies me. I love you enough that I'd give up everything else if I had to choose. I love you enough that the thought of losing this makes me want to burn the world down. That's dramatic. I'm serious. I spent 24 years thinking love was weakness. Now I realize it's the only thing that makes any of this matter. You and Sophie. This life we're building. It's the first real thing I've ever had. Dave was quiet for a moment. Then he said, "Marry me." Victoria's breath caught. What? Marry me. Not now, not tomorrow, but someday. When you're ready. When Sophie's ready. When it feels right. He cupped her face. I want to build a life with you, Victoria. I want to wake up next to you when we're 70 and still learning how to be together. I want Sophie to have siblings if we're lucky. I want messy and complicated and real. That's the least romantic proposal I've ever heard. Is it working? Victoria kissed him hard. Yes. God, yes. Someday. When it's right. They made love slowly, quietly, trying not to wake Sophie down the hall. Afterward, Victoria traced patterns on Dave's chest and thought about the future for the first time without fear. The next morning, Sophie came into their room at 6 a.m. I know you guys are gross and in love, but I have a soccer game in 3 hours and I can't find my lucky socks. Hey, Victoria groaned. We'll help you look. Also, I need someone to braid my hair and Dad's terrible at it. I'll do it. Sophie climbed onto the bed between them. Are you guys going to get married? Dave and Victoria exchanged glances. Maybe someday, Dave said carefully. Would that be okay with you? Sophie considered it. Would Ms. Morgan be my stepmom? If you wanted her to be. Can I still call her Ms. Morgan? Victoria feels weird. Victoria smiled. You can call me whatever feels right. Okay. Then yeah, you guys should get married. But not until I'm in middle school because I want to be the flower girl and I need to be old enough to wear heels. That's your only concern, heels. And also I want a dog. If you guys are getting married, we should have a dog. It's only fair. Dave laughed. We'll talk about the dog. That's what you always say when you mean no. That's what I always say when I mean we'll talk about it. They went to the soccer game. Sophie scored twice. Victoria screamed herself hoarse. Dave held her hand the entire time, their fingers intertwined like they belonged that way. Jennifer Martinez came over afterward. You guys want to grab lunch? There's a good burger place near here. Victoria looked at Dave, who nodded. We'd love to. They sat in a crowded restaurant with Sophie and Jennifer's daughter talking animatedly about soccer strategy, while the adults made awkward small talk that slowly became real conversation. How are you adjusting to civilian life? Jennifer asked Victoria. It's strange. I keep waiting for someone to need something from me. An emergency meeting, a crisis to solve. But there's just time, so much time. What are you doing with it? Learning to cook. Failing mostly, but learning. Jennifer laughed. Give it 6 months. You'll be making casseroles and volunteering for the PTA and wondering how you ever had time for a career. I'm taking a teaching position at Harvard in the fall. Good for you. Don't lose yourself completely. That's the trap. Jennifer glanced at her daughter. I love being a mom, but I also need to be Jennifer sometimes. Not just Emma's mom or someone's ex-wife. Just me. Victoria understood that more than she could say. How do you balance it? Badly most days. But I keep trying. And I surround myself with people who support me trying. She smiled at Dave. You've got a good one there. Dave's always been solid. After lunch driving home, Sophie fell asleep in the back seat. Dave reached for Victoria's hand. You did good today. I ate a burger and made small talk. That's not exactly heroic. You showed up. You tried. You let someone in even though it was uncomfortable. He squeezed her hand. That's huge for you. I'm still terrified this is all going to fall apart. Why would it fall apart? Because I'm going to mess it up. I'm going to say the wrong thing, or work too much, or forget Sophie's game, or be too cold or too needy, or... Victoria. Dave's voice was firm. You're going to make mistakes. So am I. So is Sophie. That's what families do. They mess up, and they forgive each other, and they keep showing up anyway. What if I'm not good at that? Then you'll learn, like you're learning everything else. That night, Victoria stood in Sophie's doorway, watching Dave read bedtime stories. He did different voices for different characters, made Sophie giggle with his dramatic pauses, kissed her forehead when she finally started yawning. Love you, little star. Love you, Dad. Sophie looked past him to Victoria. Love you too, Ms. Morgan. Victoria's throat tightened. Love you too, sweetheart. After Sophie was asleep, Victoria and Dave sat on the couch with wine and comfortable silence. She said she loves me, Victoria said quietly. I heard. No one said that to me in 30 years, not since my father died. Dave pulled her close. Get used to it. We're not going anywhere. Victoria closed her eyes and let herself believe it. Let herself trust that maybe finally she'd found the thing she'd been running from her whole life. Home. The next few months passed in a blur of ordinary moments that felt extraordinary because they were hers. Teaching Sophie to bake cookies that came out edible. Going to Dave's engineering site visits and actually understanding the technical discussions. Accepting Harvard's offer and spending hours preparing lectures about everything she'd learned the hard way. She started therapy. Started unpacking 24 years of armor and anger and self-protection. Started understanding that her father's death hadn't been about weakness. It had been about cancer. And her mother's collapse hadn't been about love making you vulnerable. It had been about never learning to stand on her own. Victoria was learning. Slowly, painfully, but learning. One Saturday in July, Dave took her and Sophie hiking in Rocky Mountain National Park. They climbed to a ridge overlooking a valley painted gold with summer grass. It's beautiful, Victoria breathed. Yeah, Dave agreed. But he was looking at her, not the view. Sophie rolled her eyes. You guys are so gross. But she was smiling. They sat on the ridge eating sandwiches and drinking water and talking about nothing important. Sophie wanted to know if astronauts got homesick in space. Dave told stories about his deployment in Iraq. Victoria talked about teaching about her students who reminded her what it felt like to be hungry for success before fear turned it into survival. Do you miss it? Sophie asked. Running your company. Victoria thought about it honestly. Sometimes, I miss the challenge, the feeling of building something, but I don't miss the person I had to be to do it. I like who I am now better. Who are you now? I'm still figuring that out, but I think I'm someone who shows up, for the people who matter, for the life that matters, not for the image or the empire or the proving everyone wrong. Sophie nodded like that made perfect sense. Good. Because the other version of you seemed lonely. She was sweetheart. She really was. They hiked back down as the sun started setting, tired and happy, and covered in trail dust. When they got home, there was a message on Dave's machine. Mr. Sullivan, this is Mark Reeves from Hawthorne Environmental. I know you turned down our consulting offer, but we've got a new project I think you'd be perfect for. Call me back when you can. Dave looked at Victoria. Call him back, she said. It might mean weird hours. Travel sometimes. We'll figure it out. You deserve to do work that challenges you. So do you. I know. That's why we're both going to say yes to the things that scare us. Victoria pulled him close. Together. And Dave Sullivan, who'd spent 4 years just surviving, who'd thought his one chance at happiness, had died with Michelle, kissed the woman who'd taught him that second chances were real. That sometimes you had to get stuck to get free. That love wasn't weakness, it was the bravest thing you could do. Dave called Hawthorne Environmental back on Monday morning, while Victoria was making breakfast and burning it as usual. Sophie had taken to keeping a fire extinguisher near the stove as a joke that was becoming less funny the more Victoria cooked. "Mr. Reeves, this is David Sullivan, returning your call." Victoria scraped charred eggs into the trash and started over while trying not to obviously eavesdrop. She was terrible at it. "That's an interesting project," Dave said. "But I'd need to talk to my family before committing to that kind of timeline." His family. Victoria felt something warm spread through her chest at the casual way he said it. She was family now, not a complication or a relationship or even a girlfriend. Family. Dave hung up and found her staring at the stove with a spatula in her hand. That was smooth. Very subtle eavesdropping. I wasn't eavesdropping. I was multitasking. "You're burning eggs again." Victoria looked down. "Damn it." Dave took the spatula from her hand and kissed her forehead. "Go sit down. I'll make breakfast. You can practice being a person who lets other people help." "I hate that." "I know. Do it anyway." Sophie came downstairs, already dressed for school, her hair in a braid Victoria had learned to do after watching 17 YouTube videos. "Dad's cooking. That means Ms. Morgan tried and failed again." "I'm getting better," Victoria protested. "You made edible toast yesterday." "That's not better, that's basic survival skills." Sophie grabbed her backpack. "What did the engineering people want?" Dave flipped eggs with practiced ease. "They've got a children's hospital in Fort Collins they're designing. Want me to consult on the environmental systems. It's a 6-month project, mostly remote work, but some on-site visits." "Are you going to do it?" "Do you think I should?" Sophie considered it seriously. "Is it good work? Like work that matters?" "Healing sick kids. Yeah, I'd say it matters." "Then you should do it. Ms. Morgan's teaching people about being good at business. You should teach people about being good at building things. And I'll be here being good at soccer and math." She grinned. "We'll all be useful." Victoria marveled at how easily Sophie accepted change, how she didn't cling to stability the way Victoria had spent her entire life doing. Maybe that was the difference between a child who'd been loved consistently and an adult who'd learned love was conditional. "You're pretty wise for 10, Victoria said. "I'm almost 11, and I've had a lot of therapy." Sophie said it matter-of-factly. "After Mom died, Dad made sure I talked to someone. She taught me that change isn't bad, it's just different. And different can be good if you let it." Dave served eggs that were actually edible. They ate together at the kitchen table, planning their day like normal families did. Sophie had school and soccer practice. Dave had maintenance work in the morning and an afternoon call with Hawthorne. Victoria had a therapy session, and then she was meeting with Harvard's dean to finalize her fall curriculum. "What time is your therapy?" Dave asked. 2:00. "Why?" "Just making sure you're going. You tried to cancel last week." Victoria felt caught. "I had work to do." "You had syllabi to organize. That's not the same as work." Dave's voice was gentle but firm. "You promised you'd take this seriously." "I am taking it seriously." "Then stop trying to find excuses to avoid it." Sophie watched their exchange with interest. "Is therapy scary?" "Sometimes," Victoria admitted. "Talking about things I've spent 30 years not talking about is uncomfortable. But you do it anyway because uncomfortable things help you grow. That's what my therapist says." Sophie finished her eggs. "You're brave, Ms. Morgan. Even when you don't think you are." After Sophie left for school, Dave cleaned the kitchen while Victoria sat with coffee and tried not to think about therapy. "Talk to me," Dave said. "About what?" "About why you're staring at your coffee like it contains the secrets of the universe." Victoria sighed. "My therapist wants me to contact my mother." Dave stopped washing dishes. "What do you think about that?" "I think my mother hasn't spoken to me in 6 months. Since I left Morgan Industries. Since I chose you over the empire she thought she was building for my father's memory." "So you're scared she'll reject you?" "I'm scared I don't care if she rejects me. That I've finally let go of needing her approval, and it turns out there's nothing underneath. No relationship, no love, just obligation and resentment. Dave dried his hands and sat across from her. Would that be the worst thing? Realizing my mother and I have nothing? Realizing you don't need her validation anymore? That you've built a life that doesn't require her blessing? Victoria thought about that. It feels like giving up. Or it feels like growing up. Sometimes those look the same. She went to therapy. Dr. Sarah Chen was 62, had kind eyes and a zero-tolerance policy for Victoria's deflection tactics. How are things with David and Sophie? Good. Really good. Terrifyingly good. Why terrifying? Because I keep waiting for it to fall apart, for them to realize I'm too damaged, too cold, too fundamentally broken to be worth the effort. Has David given you any indication he feels that way? No. He's patient and kind and keeps telling me I'm learning. But what if I never learn enough? What if I'm always going to be the woman who burns eggs and forgets Sophie's games and works too much because I don't know how to just be? Dr. Chen made a note. You haven't forgotten a single one of Sophie's games in 4 months. I almost forgot last Tuesday. I had a conference call with Harvard and... But you didn't forget. You rescheduled the call. You chose Sophie over work. That's not failure, Victoria. That's progress. It doesn't feel like progress. It feels like constantly swimming against a current. That's what change feels like, especially when you're fighting decades of conditioning. Dr. Chen set down her pen. Let's talk about your mother. Victoria's stomach clenched. Do we have to? You brought her up in our last session. Said you felt guilty for not caring that she'd cut you off. I don't feel guilty. I feel empty, like there should be grief or anger or something, but instead, there's just nothing. Maybe nothing is what's left when you stop performing emotions you don't actually feel. Victoria looked up sharply. What? You spent your entire life trying to earn your mother's approval, trying to prove you weren't weak like your father, trying to build the empire she couldn't maintain. Dr. Chen leaned forward. What if letting go of that isn't emptiness? What if it's freedom? But she's my mother. And you're allowed to have complicated feelings about that. You're allowed to love her and still recognize that the relationship isn't healthy. You're allowed to choose yourself. Victoria felt tears start. She's going to die someday, and we'll have spent years not speaking. Is that your fear or your grief? I don't know. Both maybe. Victoria wiped her eyes. My father died, and I never got to tell him I loved him more than the company. I never got to tell him I forgave him for being human. I don't want to make the same mistake with her. Then don't. Reach out. But do it for you, not for her. Do it so you can live with yourself regardless of how she responds. Victoria left therapy feeling raw and uncertain. She sat in her car for 20 minutes before finally pulling out her phone and typing a text to her mother. I'd like to talk. When you're ready. No agenda, no demands, just talk. She hit send before she could overthink it. Her mother responded 3 hours later. Coffee. Thursday, 2 p.m. Starbucks on Colfax. Victoria stared at the message. No greeting, no warmth. Just logistics. Classic Elizabeth Morgan. She showed it to Dave that night. Do you want me to come with you? No, this is something I need to do alone. She leaned into him. But I want to come home to you after. Is that okay? That's more than okay. That's the whole point of us. Thursday arrived with the kind of anxiety that made Victoria's chest tight. She dressed carefully, choosing clothes that weren't too corporate, but weren't too casual. Trying to find a middle ground between the daughter Elizabeth had raised and the woman Victoria was becoming. Her mother was already there when Victoria arrived. Elizabeth Morgan was 69, still beautiful, still carrying herself like she owned every room she entered. She looked at Victoria with sharp eyes that missed nothing. You look different. Hello, Mother. Don't hello me. Sit down. Tell me what this is about. Victoria sat. I wanted to see you. Why? So you could gloat about your new life, your maintenance man and his daughter. His name is David. Her name is Sophie. And no, I'm not here to gloat. Elizabeth sipped her coffee. You threw away everything I built for you. Everything your father died trying to protect. And for what? Playing house with people who will never understand what it took to build that empire. Dad didn't die trying to protect the company. He died of cancer. He died because he was weak. Because he prioritized being loved over being strong. Victoria felt the old anger rise but forced it down. No. He died because cells mutated in his pancreas and modern medicine couldn't stop it. His weakness didn't kill him, Mother. The universe did. Random, meaningless, nothing to do with how strong or weak he was. You don't understand. I understand perfectly. You've spent 35 years blaming Dad for dying, blaming him for leaving you, blaming yourself for not being enough to make him stay. And you've punished both of us for it. Victoria's voice was steady. But I'm done being punished for his death. I'm done trying to earn forgiveness for being alive when he's not. Elizabeth's face went white. How dare you? I dare because I'm finally brave enough to tell the truth. You didn't build that company for Dad's memory. You built it because you were terrified of being the person who failed after he died. You were terrified everyone would see you as weak. So you became hard instead. And you became just like me. I did, until I met David and Sophie and learned there was another way. Victoria leaned forward. I learned that being loved doesn't make you weak. It makes you brave enough to be vulnerable. It makes you brave enough to choose people over empires. And where has that gotten you unemployed? Living in a house that probably costs less than your car used to. Teaching college kids who will forget you the second semester ends. It's gotten me happiness. Real happiness, not the hollow satisfaction of quarterly earnings and stockholder approval. Victoria held her mother's gaze. I sleep through the night now. I wake up next to someone who loves me. I have a daughter who trusts me with her heart. That's worth more than Morgan Industries ever was. Elizabeth looked away. When she spoke, her voice was softer. Your father would have liked him, David. He always liked men who worked with their hands, who built real things instead of just moving money around. I know. He would have loved having a granddaughter to spoil. Victoria felt her throat tighten. He would have. They sat in silence for a long moment. Then Elizabeth said, I don't know how to do this. How to be a mother who isn't also a drill sergeant. How to have a relationship with you that isn't about the company. Neither do I. But maybe we could learn together. I'm not good at learning new things. Neither am I, but I'm trying anyway. Victoria reached across the table. I'm not asking you to bless my choices, or approve of David, or suddenly become a doting grandmother. I'm just asking you to try, to maybe have coffee once a month and talk about things that aren't business, or Dad, or all the ways we've disappointed each other. Elizabeth looked at Victoria's outstretched hand, like it was a foreign object. Then slowly she took it. Once a month, coffee, nothing more. That's all I'm asking. And I'm not calling him your boyfriend. He's your partner, or your significant other, or something that sounds less teenage. Despite everything, Victoria smiled. Deal. They finished their coffee talking about safe topics. Elizabeth's garden that she'd finally hired someone to maintain. Victoria's teaching position. Sophie's soccer team. Nothing deep, nothing healing, but a start. When Victoria got home, she found Dave and Sophie in the backyard with a puppy. Please don't be mad, Sophie said immediately. We were just looking and she was so sad, and the shelter said she'd been there for 3 months and... We got a dog, Dave said, looking sheepish. Surprise. The puppy was a mutt, maybe 30 pounds, with floppy ears and eyes that were too big for her face. She bounded over to Victoria and tried to climb her leg. We got a dog, Victoria repeated. Her name is Luna, because she's the color of the moon, and also because I'm going to be an astronaut someday, so it fits. Sophie was talking fast, nervous. We'll take care of her. You won't have to do anything. I promise. Victoria looked at Dave, who shrugged helplessly. Sophie made a very compelling argument about responsibility and commitment, and the dog really did look sad. Victoria knelt down and let the puppy lick her face. We got a dog. Are you mad? Sophie asked. I'm not mad. I'm just processing that we now have a puppy who will probably destroy my shoes and pee on the carpet and make everything more chaotic. Is that a yes? Victoria looked at this little girl who'd stolen her heart, at this man who'd taught her what love actually meant, at this ridiculous puppy who was now chewing on her sleeve. That's a yes! Sophie whooped and threw her arms around Victoria. Thank you, thank you, thank you. You're the best Ms. Morgan ever. That night, after Sophie was asleep and Luna was crated in the kitchen whimpering, Victoria and Dave lay in bed talking about the day. How was coffee with your mother? Painful, honest, maybe productive. We're going to try monthly coffee dates. No promises, no expectations, just trying. That's big. It's terrifying, but I think Dr. Chen is right. I need to do this for me, not for her, so I can live with myself regardless of how it turns out. Dave pulled her closer. I'm proud of you. For having coffee with my mother. For being brave enough to try when it would be easier to stay angry. For choosing vulnerability over armor. For letting yourself want things even when they scare you. Victoria turned to face him. I want to marry you. Dave's eyes widened. What? Not now, not yet, but soon. I want Sophie to be my daughter legally, not just in my heart. I want to wake up every day for the rest of my life knowing you chose me, and I chose you, and we keep choosing each other. She cupped his face. I want to be your wife, David Sullivan. Dave kissed her softly. Then let's do it. Let's get married. When Sophie's ready, when it feels right, when we've got Luna housebroken so she doesn't pee on your wedding dress. Victoria laughed. That's the most romantic thing you've ever said. I'm full of romance. Just ask my maintenance schedule. They made love quietly, trying not to wake Sophie or the puppy. Afterward, Victoria lay with her head on Dave's chest and thought about how far she'd come from that elevator 8 months ago. She'd lost a company, but gained a family. Lost an identity, but found herself. Lost her armor, but gained the courage to be vulnerable. What are you thinking? Dave asked. That I would get stuck in that elevator 1,000 times if it meant ending up here. With you. With Sophie. With a puppy who's probably destroying your kitchen as we speak. That's the universe working exactly as intended. The next morning, Luna had indeed destroyed Dave's kitchen. Or more accurately, had chewed through the corner of the trash can and distributed garbage across the floor with artistic flair. Sophie was mortified. I'm so sorry. I'll clean it up, all of it. We'll clean it up, Victoria said. Together. That's what families do. They spent Saturday morning puppy-proofing the house and teaching Luna basic commands with varying success. Victoria discovered she was terrible at dog training the same way she was terrible at cooking. But she kept trying anyway, kept showing up, kept learning. Dave took the Hawthorne consulting job. Victoria finalized her Harvard curriculum. Sophie tried out for the traveling soccer team and made it. They settled into a rhythm of busy, but together challenging, but supported. In October, Victoria taught her first class at Harvard. She stood in front of 30 MBA students and told them about building an empire and losing herself in the process. About choosing fear over love until someone showed her a different way. About learning that success without humanity was just expensive loneliness. The students were riveted. One of them raised her hand. Do you regret any of it? Building the company, prioritizing work over relationships, becoming who you were. Victoria thought about it honestly. I regret the time I wasted being afraid. but I don't regret the journey because it brought me to where I am now. Every mistake, every wrong turn, every moment of choosing ambition over connection taught me something. The question isn't whether you'll make mistakes, it's whether you'll learn from them. After class, several students stayed to ask questions. One of them, a young woman named Sarah, hung back until everyone else left. "Ms. Morgan, can I ask you something personal?" "Sure." "How did you know that he was worth giving everything up for?" Victoria smiled. "Because being with him felt more like myself than anything I'd ever built. Because he saw me without my armor and didn't run away. Because love shouldn't feel like sacrifice. It should feel like coming home." Sarah nodded, tears in her eyes. "Thank you. I needed to hear that." Victoria flew back to Denver that night. Dave picked her up from the airport with Sophie and Luna in tow. "How was Boston?" Sophie asked. "Exhausting, exhilarating. I think I might actually be good at this teaching thing." "Of course you are. You're good at everything once you stop being scared of it." They drove home through October darkness, Luna asleep in Sophie's lap, Dave's hand on Victoria's knee. When they pulled into the driveway, Victoria felt that same warm sense of rightness she felt every time she came back to this house. "I love you," she said to both of them. "We know," Sophie said. "You tell us like every day now." "Is that too much?" "No, it's perfect. Mom used to say you can't say I love you too much. There's no quota." Inside, they made dinner together. Victoria only burned the garlic bread this time, which Dave declared progress. They ate at the kitchen table with Luna begging under it, planning their week like it was the most natural thing in the world. After Sophie went to bed, Dave pulled Victoria out to the back porch. "I've been thinking about your proposal." "My proposal?" "About getting married. About making this official." He pulled a small box from his pocket. "I know you said not yet, but I wanted you to know I'm ready, whenever you are." Victoria opened the box. Inside was a simple silver band with a small diamond. "It was my grandmother's," Dave said. "She gave it to me before she died, said to give it to someone who made me believe in second chances." He took the ring out and held it up. "You made me believe, Victoria. You made me believe that life doesn't end with loss, that there's always room for more love, that broken people can heal if they're brave enough to try." "Are you proposing?" "I'm telling you, I'm ready when you are, that I'll wait as long as you need. But I wanted you to know that I'm all in. You, me, Sophie, Luna, whatever comes next. I'm choosing us every single day for the rest of my life." Victoria took the ring from him and slid it onto her finger. It fit perfectly. "Then let's not wait. Let's get married. Small ceremony, just family. Sophie can wear heels and be the flower girl, and we can start the rest of our lives." "When?" "Spring. After this semester ends. Before the next one starts. When the weather's perfect, and Sophie's between soccer seasons, and we can take a real honeymoon before life gets busy again." Dave pulled her into his arms. "Spring it is." They stood on the back porch holding each other, two people who'd found each other in the most unlikely way, and Victoria thought about that elevator 8 months ago. About being trapped between floors, gasping for air, convinced she was going to die alone in that steel box. She'd been rescued by a maintenance man with kind eyes and a gentle voice who'd taught her to breathe. Who'd shown her that vulnerability wasn't weakness. Who'd loved her, not despite her damage, but because he understood it. Sometimes you had to get stuck to get free. Sometimes you had to lose everything to find what mattered. Sometimes the person who saves you is the one you least expect. Victoria had spent 47 years running from love, convinced it would destroy her the way she thought it had destroyed her father. But Dave had taught her the truth. Her father hadn't been destroyed by love. He'd been sustained by it. Had fought cancer for 9 months longer than doctors predicted because he had people to fight for. Had died surrounded by love instead of alone in his armor. And now Victoria had that too. People to fight for. People who fought for her. A messy, chaotic, beautiful life that had nothing to do with empires and everything to do with showing up. "What are you thinking?" Dave asked. "That I'm grateful. For getting stuck in that elevator. For meeting you. For Sophie and Luna and burnt garlic bread and all of it. Even the media circus and losing your job. Especially that, because it forced me to choose. To figure out what actually mattered." She looked up at him. "You matter. This matters. Us. That's the only empire worth building." Dave kissed her as the Denver night settled around them, cool and clear and full of possibility. And for the first time in her life, Victoria Morgan wasn't afraid of what came next. She was ready for it. All of it. Whatever it brought. Because she wasn't facing it alone anymore. She had a family. She had love. She had finally come home.